Welcome to meeting number 18 of the House Commons Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format, as we're all used to now, pursuant to the House Order of January 25th, 2021. Proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website. Pursuant to Standing Order 81-4, the committee is undertaking the study of main estimates 2021-2022. We are pleased to welcome with us today the Minister of Veterans Affairs and department officials. I will introduce the department officials in the second hour, but to start us off today, we're pleased to welcome the Honourable Lawrence Macaulay, Minister of Veterans Affairs. Sir, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and committee members. Thank you for having me today to speak about our main estimates. It's always a pleasure to join you, and I appreciate the important work you've been doing on the backlog, supports for the veterans organizations and our veterans' families and caregivers. As I told you before, reducing wait times has been my absolute top priority as minister. I'm confident that we're on the right track to meet our goal of having the backlog under control next year. The backlog is currently down to about 15,000 applications from around 23,000 this time last year. More and more decisions are being made every single day. Last June, we presented a plan to tackle the backlog using everything from new hires to digitization. In the 2020 fiscal update, we committed nearly $200 million in additional funding to put this plan into action. This plan has been making progress. We've hired and trained the veterans benefit teams. This next quarter will be the first when we'll all be up running for the whole time, and we expect to see increased number of decisions every month after month. There's certainly a lot still to do, and too many veterans are still waiting too long. But the number of decisions being made and the decrease we've seen in the backlog, 15,000 today, down from 23,000 last year, shows that we're moving in the right direction. You'll see that the main estimates are over $1 billion higher than last year. That includes an increase of nearly $870 million for disability benefits and nearly $175 million for income supports. We need this funding largely because we're making faster decisions, approving more applications, and getting benefits to veterans faster. That is nearly $1 billion more directly to the veterans than last year, and well over $2 billion more than 2014-15. There's still more to do, but I'm sure that all of us here can agree that this is important progress. It's also noting, Mr. Chair, that this work on wait times has taken place during a global pandemic. Since the pandemic started, employees of Veterans Affairs have been reaching out directly to veterans to check in and make sure they're okay. We'll continue to reach out in the weeks and months to come. And because it affects our veterans just like it affects our serving members, I want to briefly address the reports that we have been hearing about sexual misconduct in our armed forces. Like you, I've been deeply troubled by the stories we've been hearing. Signing up to serve with the flag on your shoulder comes with its own risks. An unsafe workplace should never be one of them. No matter the rank, there is no place for any kind of misconduct we've been hearing about. I want to stress how important it is for those who may be impacted to reach out. We've been working regularly with veterans and advocates on this issue of support for victims of military sexual trauma. We have service and support available through Veterans Affairs. No one should face these issues alone. We set up the Office of Women and LGBTQ2 Veterans, and we've held women's veterans forums to help identify and address the unique needs of the women who serve Canada in uniform. Veterans Affairs Canada exists to offer support and assistance, whether that relates to sexual misconduct, a post-traumatic stress injury, or any other issue that one of our veterans may be facing. We want to help. We recently funded McMaster University through the Veterans and Family Wellbeing Fund for an intervention strategy for veterans who have PTSD after experiencing sexual misconduct during service. We always need to do more, and this is certainly an issue that we will continue to work on. In conclusion, Mr. Chair, the main estimates are critical to the department to deliver on its mandate to serve our veterans and their families. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Minister. And I will just take a moment here to suspend so that we can do MP Fillmore's sound check. Mr. Clerk. So we'll now reconvene the meeting, and first up for questions is MP Broussard for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister, for being with us again today. And I would agree that the committee has been doing some pretty good work in discussing the backlogs, looking at veteran service organizations, and many other issues. I do want to focus for a minute on some of your remarks here as the Associate Minister of Defense. Some people may not know that you hold that title as well. When you said, like all of you, I've been deeply troubled by the stories we've been hearing. Signing up to serve with our flag on your shoulder comes with its own risks. An unsafe workplace should never be one of them. No matter the rank, there's no place for this kind of misconduct that we've been hearing about. Minister, by now you've probably heard that the National Defense Committee was shut down by members of the Liberal Party today. So my question to you is, Minister, when it really matters, why are you, the Defense Minister, and your government turning your backs on women in the military when it really matters by shutting down this committee and the probe into sexual misconduct?
John, I can assure you that number one, the committee is a body within itself, and they make their own decisions, and I have nothing to do with what they do at the National Defense Committee if I'm not there, and you're fully aware of that. But I can tell you one thing for sure: this issue is it's an issue that has to be dealt with. There's absolutely no place for this in Canada. It's totally unacceptable.
Well, you see, Minister, here's the difference, is that the committee was dealing with it. And yet it was members of your own government, the members of that committee, who moved a motion to shut it down. So how do you reconcile the fact that, you want to stress how important, you said this in your remarks, you want to stress how important it is to reach out, but the message to women in the military today is, like, we're not interested in hearing about it. We're going to shut it down. How do you reconcile that, Minister?
John, as you're fully aware, I was not at the committee, but the fact is, with Veterans Affairs, we certainly and absolutely deal with those issues. We take the word of the veteran when they come forward to make sure the issue is dealt with appropriately at Veterans Affairs, and we will continue to do that. What the National Defense Committee does, it's the National Defense Committee's business, but I will do my best as Minister of Veterans Affairs to make sure that every veteran receives the service and remuneration that they deserve. And that is why we work so hard, and that's why your committee works so hard in order to make sure that we're able to provide these benefits. We will continue to do so, and I think you know that.
Yes, sir. I want to focus on the backlog numbers for a second. In the ACVA report, Clearing the Jam, addressing the backlog of disability claims at Veterans Affairs Canada, it listed that the backlog as of June 30th, 2020 was 21,572 files, with an additional pending number of 23,724 files, for a total of 45,296. In your address, you have provided that the number was 15,000 that are in the backlog. Can you also provide to us what the additional pending files are that are not assigned and under the 16 weeks of wait time, which is the normal standard?
Well, John, as I indicated clearly, that the backlog dropped. It's a major issue, and we all agree with that. It dropped from 23,000 to 15,000, and we will continue to do that. I'm not sure what files you want, but what we're going to make sure at Veterans Affairs Canada is to make sure all the files are addressed. As back now in the situation with files coming in about as fast as they were before the pandemic hit. As you know, there's been a dramatic increase in applications to Veterans Affairs. We have done an enormous amount of work in order to, and spent just under $200 million on this issue alone to hire 350 people, plus train about 180 or 75 or 80 more people in the department to make sure that these people were able to deal with the backlog, and they are dealing with the backlog. I indicated to you previously that the backlog was my number one priority, and we are dealing with it and will continue to deal with and make sure by a year that the backlog has been addressed.
Thank you, Minister. The next, I want to talk about the Pension for Life scheme. The Veterans Affairs Canada Departmental Plan 2021-22 states that the number of veterans choosing lump sum payments over monthly payments for the new plan and suffering compensation has resulted in increased plan spending. And the whole point of the Pension for Life was to replace the lump sum payments that had been made since 2006. So in your opinion, has this scheme been a failure, and has it not achieved what its desired goal was, and that was to spread out monthly payments rather than veterans accepting the lump sum payment?
But
Minister,
John,
you have time for a brief answer, please.
The fact is, I think my colleague is fully aware that the veteran has the decision to make whether he wants to take the lump sum payment or the monthly payment, and that's a decision that was made previously and is in place. It's a decision that's made by the veteran. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. And now over to Will Amos, please, for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, you've come before this committee on several occasions, been transparent on every occasion, supported by our most senior public servants at Veterans Affairs. And it's clear that the effort has been there to achieve necessary improvements. The issue or the challenges have been acknowledged. The problems are being confronted head on, and I think Canadians are looking for this committee to get as clear a sense as possible of not only what the improvements are, but also, you know, what additional measures are being taken. You've given us some indication of that. I'm wondering, can you provide some additional detail on how the pandemic, over the course of a year of Veterans Affairs public servants working through a pandemic, how the overall department and its team are functioning, and what challenges there are as you and your department try to get this wait list down as much as possible.
Thank you very much, William. And the truth is, the pandemic has been, of course, when it happened, it was a great test for everybody. And without a doubt, the department has come to the, certainly came to the table and responded very well. In fact, dealing with veterans has and funds going out the door has now, I believe, at the previous level, if not above the previous level. But I think on the departmental side, I'll let the deputy give more detail on that, William. But it's important that people realize that the public servants in Veterans Affairs have answered the call. They provided the benefits for veterans, and I'd let my deputy say a few words on that. I think he's quite pleased with what took place.
Sure, thanks very much for that. Just to say, so right from when the pandemic hit on the 13th of March last year, the department went to a remote working environment. And I'm pleased to say that within a month, we're back up over 90% effective. That is people with the right IT equipment and secure access that automatically we started to reach out to those vulnerable veterans, veterans who we believe were on the verge of homelessness, veterans who were in long-term care and linking with their families. We reached out to women veterans, Indigenous veterans, or anyone with an illness ailment that where our folks deemed that they were vulnerable, including case managed veterans. We continue to provide service daily. We receive about 1,600 phone calls a day and hundreds of texts a day. Interesting in some areas like our phone service, we actually became more efficient in answering calls, certainly within the 2-minute standard. We started piloting, being able to use tools such as this and Microsoft Teams to do virtual meetings with veterans. Our mental health supports went virtual almost immediately. Very proud of the operational stress injury clinics and our clinicians across the country. At the same time, in cases where our veterans were in very difficult palliative or frail cases, we still had employees who did home visits, occupational therapists, and other professions in order to ensure seamlessness in support. We created a COVID-19 working group with veteran stakeholders so that we could again, hear from them and see ways and means in which we could improve what we were doing. And we continue to learn having these meetings on a regular basis across the board. The fact that we were able to hire over 350 employees and train them during this environment in a virtual workspace, I think was commendable for the team. I think I'll stop there, sir.
William, I think that explains pretty well how efficient the public servants have been at Veterans Affairs Canada here and right across the country. And it's so important because it is a time for mental stress when the pandemic is in place. And without a question, as the deputy has indicated, we have addressed the call or the department has addressed the call for veterans to make sure we provide the appropriate service to the best of our ability. And for that, I'm very thankful to all our public servants here at Veterans Affairs. I've been at this business a long time, and I think we have in Veterans Affairs the finest public servants in the country who are dedicated to the task, and they certainly showed it when this pandemic was on. Again, I want to thank them publicly for that.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Deputy Minister. And I, too, through you, would like to thank the public servants at Veterans Affairs for their incredible hard work in such stressful circumstances. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Up next for 6 minutes, Député Desilets.
Yes, hello, everybody, and hello to dear colleagues and guests. Minister, I'm a little bit surprised with your speech today. I'm disappointed, actually. I would have expected you to talk about women. I would have expected to hear you talk about service for francophones. You did mention women, and you mentioned the new office that you opened, but that causes problems. It's not functional. That's what we've been hearing of the new women's and LGBTQ2 office. I'd like to hear about mental health. But I'd like to ask you the following question. Do you believe that it's possible? I have a citizen who said to me that it had been suggested to them, the department had suggested to them, that they ask their questions or make their applications in English rather than in French for 3 reasons. The first is that the application would be processed faster. The second was that it would be easier for her to win her case. I can't believe that, but apparently it would be easier to be accepted in English. And the third reason was that in English, the data is more up to date. So my question, Minister, is, do you recognize that there is a problem of inequality of service in French versus English in the sector of veterans.
The last thing I ever want to do is disappoint you. The fact is, yes, we do. Yes, we do understand quite clearly. And we had to hire more Francophone and bilingual staff in order to make sure that that the French applications were processed properly and more quickly.
Are you receiving the translation?
Monsieur le Président.
I'm not getting the translation.
Monsieur Desilets, can you hear me okay? Is there translation now? Can you hear me?
Je vous entends et j'entends très bien le français.
Yes, I hear you very well now, and I hear the French very well. Could you start again then, please? And of course, the time will be considered.
Brian, can you hear me properly?
We can hear you just fine. I just
Very
want to make
good.
sure that
Luke, as I said, the last thing I would ever want to do is disappoint you. And the fact is, yes, we are aware, and that is we're aware, and that's why we hired more Francophone assistants and more bilingual assistants in order to make sure that we had them to make sure that we could reduce the wait time. There's absolutely no reason for anybody in this country to not be able to file an application in English or in French to the Department of Veterans Affairs. That is and must be the way that things are handled at Veterans Affairs. But we do understand on women and LGBTQ veterans, we had to do more. That's why in 2020, we had the first conference to make sure that, or I think it was 2019, was it? Yeah, but the first one was in 2019, which I had the privilege of announcing and putting in place in order to make sure that women veterans and other veterans had that we understood exactly how to deal with the problems that they have when they apply for assistance.
Thank you, Minister.
And we will continue.
Merci. Je veux juste revenir sur.
Thank you. I'd like to get back to the situation of Francophones. Concretely speaking, how are we going to find a solution to this problem? Because it's a recurrent problem and it's been going on and on. It is not improving. I'd like to give you a quick example. I have a citizen who did the following test. She made an English application for a veteran in Ottawa, and he's Francophone, but she applied in English and received a reply within 7 weeks. And it was for additional pain and suffering benefits and the compensation. You know that kind of application normally takes 6 to 12 months. So, and there are people at the other end there who are waiting and they're suffering. And they don't have the money they need and that is due them. Concretely speaking, what are you going to do and when?
Luke, what we were going to do with the situation overall is make sure we hired more people, that we digitized the system, made sure that the applications move more quickly. Yes, we did understand that we need to hire more Francophone assistants, and we did, in order to make sure that we address those claims in an appropriate time. I think we're all aware that there was too long of a wait time, too long for veterans to wait. But you also understand, Luke, and I know you do, that the number was at 23,000 and it's now down to 15,000. We're working to make sure that we address this problem appropriately. And we have addressed hiring more Francophone assistants. But Luke, if you have an individual issue that's having a difficulty, please contact me and I'll do whatever I can in order to address that issue. But without a question, in Veterans Affairs Canada, you can apply in English or in French, and you should. But I would like to hear from you on the individual issue that you're dealing with, and I will try to help.
15 seconds.
Monsieur McCauley, vous savez que je vous aime.
Mr. McCauley, you know I love you. But I have to say something to you. Unfortunately, I have tried to make an appointment with you in November, and I never got a call back on that one. We had things we needed to talk about regarding veterans. So, I love you anyways. You've got a very full agenda, but it would be my pleasure to talk to you about a particular case if you get back to me. But I still like you. That's all for me. Thank you.
Tell Luke that I will be back to him.
Thank
I will
you.
call you, Luke.
Sounds good. Okay, over to MP Blaney for 6 minutes, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here with us today. And I hope that you do address this issue, because I know that veterans who are applying and getting the services they need in French are not getting them and having to wait longer than English-speaking veterans. And I hope that's addressed very soon. My first question to you today, Minister, is on the marriage after 60 clause. In 2015, your government promised to remove this clause. It was in previous Veterans Minister mandate letters, but I noticed it was not in yours. However, I recognize that in 2019, there was 150 million committed over 5 years for survivors of veterans who married after 60. What I cannot find, Minister, is anything in public accounts or estimates that show that any money at all was spent. So I have 2 questions for you today. When will this clause finally be removed, considering that many veterans live well into their 80s and their partners are caring for them during that time? And 2, why was this money not spent? And if it was, will you provide the committee with the relevant documentation to prove that it has been spent?
Thank you very much, Ms. Blaney. I appreciate your question, and I also always appreciate your concern. And on this issue, my department has been working with Statistics Canada and the Canadian Institute for Military and Veterans Health Research to learn about the characteristics and needs of these survivors. Over the coming months, the department will use the results of this research to inform how best to support these survivors. First, we need to get the data and the information on just how many of these people are out there, where they're located, and anything else that we can find out about them. That is what we have done, are doing, and will continue to do.
Okay, so the money has not actually been sent to those folks. And I can promise you, Minister, that what's happening for them is that they are living in more poverty because they're not getting the support that they well deserve. When you marry someone or commit your life to someone, I certainly hope that Veterans Affairs will accept that. And I didn't hear an answer at all about when that's going to be changed. So I'm going to assume that that's no longer a priority for this government. Let's move on to the next question, Minister, if you don't mind. I would like to clarify with you on the RCMP. The fact is that at this period of time, RCMP do not qualify for the VIP program. I understand that they do in fact qualify for the attendance allowance to support them with indoor tasks, but the outdoor tasks covered by the VIP program are simply not provided. I'm just wondering if that will be fixed. When we ask RCMP to serve us, I think it's important that we return the favor when they get to that age. And I'm just wondering if that will be fixed for our RCMP.
They're eligible. Thank you very much, Ms. Blaney. And my understanding is the RCMP, like the department, works with them in order to make sure that the support is provided to them. I'll let my deputy handle that.
So what is unique for our service to the RCMP, we have a memorandum of understanding which we provide services to the RCMP. Under the RCMP Act, the RCMP leadership have decided to continue with the pension scheme. And so we administer the pension scheme for them. We include the RCMP stakeholders, their veterans associations in all of our meetings. In fact, we just had a meeting last week with them. And provide them briefings and total transparency on the host of benefits that we provide Canadian Armed Forces members. But it is the leadership of the RCMP who then decide what programs that they will sign on to include the Veterans Independence Program or long-term care or other programs which are being provided to the Canadian Armed Forces veterans. But for the RCMP, from a leadership standpoint, have not pursued those benefits. So we are in a provision of services benefit or provision of services situation with the RCMP. And we did receive additional funding for them. They have access to all of our mental health care and supports, and to include the access to the operational stress injury clinics and the
Thank you so
clinicians.
much, General. I really appreciate your answer, and we'll follow up on that again. So if I could just come back, Minister, to the disability benefits backlog. You keep mentioning the money that you're putting towards it. I recognize that. The problem is the veterans are not getting the services that they need, and we're hearing that again and again. The backlogs continue to be long. You've hired temporary workers. We're still not clear if those are temporary workers or if they're actually going to become permanent workers. I don't think this is a short-term problem. I think it's a long-term problem. Money only matters when services are being delivered. And so right now there's this huge challenge. So I'm just wondering, when is the department going to hire an amount of people to actually care for veterans the way that they deserve to be cared for?
Ms. Blaney, I know that you're committed to these issues, and I appreciate your support. And without a question, I think it's fair to say that the government and the department has done a substantial amount. Have we done enough? No. But when we put that in the last year, put just under $200 million into to make sure that the backlog was addressed. Just about around 500 new employees, 350 which are new employees, to make sure they're trained in order to address the backlog. We took the backlog from 23 to 15,000. Is it good enough? No, it's not. We need to make sure we address it properly, and we're on that path. But we have to make sure that the veterans receive the funding that they should receive in an appropriate manner. I said that, and within a year, I've indicated we will have addressed the backlog issue. It is an important issue to address, and we have to make sure that we do that, because I do understand that veterans are waiting, but there's a lot more money being delivered to veterans. Not enough, but a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And that ends the first round. We're going to move on quickly to the second round. First up is MP Wagentall for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being with us again this morning. Minister, in addition to serving as the Minister of Veterans Affairs, you are also the Associate Minister of Defense. And with the recent exposure of the depth of damage military sexual trauma has inflicted on current members of the Canadian Armed Forces, as well as veterans who experienced military sexual trauma during their service, I have to ask you, have you reached out, or has the Minister of Defense reached out, and have you met with him specifically in this regard?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I will tell my honorable colleague that the Minister of National Defense has addressed this issue properly, and we have discussions basically every week. The Minister.
And so you've met specifically on this issue?
I've met him I've met him many times on many issues, but he is the Minister of National Defense, and he has addressed this problem appropriately, as you're fully aware, and to make sure, and as I have indicated, we're going to make sure that this issue is addressed.
Okay, you've answered my question. Thank you so much. Basically, what I'm hearing is that you haven't met with him specifically on this issue. And of course, we know that both the Minister of Defense and the Prime Minister have said that they believe those bravely coming forward in regards to their testimonies about what they've experienced. I believe you said the same today. However, the proof will be in the pudding when it comes down to them having to go through the hoops to prove what they have gone through. And I certainly hope that that belief is extended extensively so that they don't become other victims of the current backlog in all that they're experiencing. So in regards to that backlog, you've indicated that the workforce has been built up over the last 4 years to 900 new positions, but over the course of the next 2 years, 750 of those positions will no longer be there. That's a remainder of 150 full-time positions, not even the 400 that the Conservative government had ready to go, the financing for when you formed government. And at the rate that you're describing dealing with the backlog, it will take a minimum of 2 more years at the current state to deal with that backlog, and that won't deal with those pile-ups of pending applications that you aren't including in the current backlog numbers. So why are you not responding to the Parliament Budget Officer's recommendation that these positions remain in place for the coming years, because this issue is going to just compound itself again when you remove all of those positions within the public service over the next 2 years?
Thank you very much. And I can assure you that when somebody comes forward to the Department of Veterans Affairs with sexual trauma issue, they're taken at their word. I don't think you want to discuss about what it was like before 2014-15 when you fired 1,000
I want to hear
people.
what you're dealing
give me
with.
a minute now to answer. You ask a question, I'll give an answer. The fact of the matter is that what your government did, or what the Conservative Party of Canada did, was fired 1,000 employees, cut the money to Veterans Affairs, hurt veterans, and hurt Veterans Affairs Canada. The changes that we have made
Thank you for that
is putting about $2.5 billion more at the end of this year into the pockets of veterans. That is why
that's a great answer. Thank you so much, Minister. However, I appreciate what you just said. Thank you so much. We were dealing in the midst of a significant recession. You have created one. So here we are. You indicate $2 billion, between $2 and $3 billion worth of new spending, and yet you continually say, even in the House of Commons, that you have invested $10 billion more dollars. Where is that money, and how has it been spent? And I do not see the removal of these particular. If you're doing a better job than we did, why are you removing 750 positions over the next 2 years when we are still in a backlog situation for those 2 years? Can you answer that, please?
I think it's awfully important to realize that compared to 2014-15 and today, there's over $2 billion more going into the pockets of veterans. What you and your department and your government did before you 14-15, you fired them. You took money out of the pockets of veterans. You hurt veterans.
Sir,
and
you're removing 750
positions. At the bottom.
As you're removing 750 positions, what do you call that?
We always hire.
What do you call removing 750 positions?
I'm afraid that's
become very efficient. Mr. Chair, I'd like to answer it. The fact of the matter is,
very briefly, sir.
Yeah, what we strive to do here and are doing is making sure that we run an efficient department, make sure we take care of our veterans, make sure they receive the proper remuneration they should. We have and will continue to do that. I thank you.
Thank you.
With 150 new positions.
Thank you. Sean Casey, 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Minister, first of all, let me thank you for recognizing the work of the dedicated public servants who have increased the level of efficiency in such difficult circumstances and who are doing yeoman service to address the backlog. Minister, I want to give you a fair chance to answer on the topic that Ms. Wagenthal raised without being interrupted. In your opening remarks, you talked about the fact that this year's estimates are $1 billion higher than last year, but they're $2 billion higher than 2014-15. I found it interesting that you chose that year because, as you know, the Minister of Veterans Affairs in 2014-15 were Julian Fantino and Erin O'Toole. So here we are looking at estimates that are $2 million higher than what was then. You and I both remember well the situation within the Department of Veterans Affairs and in the deep cuts that preceded that, and the fact that the cuts in outside of the National Capital Region were significantly higher or significantly deeper. And of course, the closing of the district offices and the like. So while your opening remarks did talk about where the $1 billion in additional funding is coming from for next year, I wonder if you could talk about the $2 billion from the days of Ministers Fantino and O'Toole up to now, and where that is coming from and the difference that's making in the lives of veterans. Thank you.
Well, I thank you, Mr. Casey. The fact of the matter is about near $2 billion of that is going into the pockets of veterans, and that's so important, and that's what we're here for, to make sure. But with that, we also established many other things, which was the Veterans Family and Wellbeing Fund. And I think most people are aware of what that does for the groups that work so hard to support veterans and veterans organizations right across the country. They speak on behalf of veterans. They tell myself, the government, and the department what the needs of veterans are. It's so important that we keep these people in place. Now, we've established the Center of Excellence for PTSD, reopened 9 of the offices that the Conservative Party closed. We hired over 1,000 employees, and we will continue to hire. Establish an education fund, which is so vitally important for veterans when they come out of the military. When you leave the Canadian military has basically every walk of life. And the economy and the business community in this nation needs those people. We put a training program in place that they can become much more efficient. It's good for themselves, good for the veteran, good for the country, good for our economy. And as you know, we invested just under $200 million to deal with the backlog. And that's why it's down from 23 to 15. The fact is, what our job is, and your job is to make sure that we put more money into the pockets of veterans who need it. Do we need to do more? Yes. Is there more to do? Yes. And we will continue to do that.
Thank you, Minister. If I may, I want to come back to the exchange that you had with Ms. Blaney. After you answered her question, she indicated that she presumed that the situation of survivors and family members of veterans who marry after 60 is no longer a priority for the government, but didn't give you a chance to respond. Would you like to do so?
Well, I think I responded quite clearly. What we're doing is evaluating the situation, gathering the information to make sure that we understand exactly what the situation is, how we deal with it, what measures need to be taken. And in fact, that is what we are doing. And when we have that, decisions will be made. But you have to know where to go. That's why we do studies on things like this. And that's why, of course, we are where we are, to make sure that we do better for veterans. Did we do enough for veterans? No, but we have certainly improved the situation, and we want to do more.
Minister, the next study that the committee is going to undertake is to have a look at commemoration. And I can tell you that one of my most memorable experiences as a parliamentarian was to accompany a group of veterans to Korea to mark a significant anniversary there, and to see young Korean kids hug those veterans when they get off the bus. Kids that, of course, wouldn't have been around when they had so bravely defended. Can you briefly give a snapshot of the 10-year strategic plan for commemoration within the department? Thank you, sir.
Very, very brief answer, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Of course, I had the privilege over the years of being on commemorating events, first and second in the Korean War, and now, which is vitally important, and we will continue to do. But we have to work with the modern veteran. You know how many places they have been. They've preserved democracy around the world. We're going to work with veterans, armed forces, veterans organizations, educators, and business people right across the country in order to make sure how we commemorate what these people, these men and women have done. We will do that and make sure that we commemorate it appropriately. It's so important to commemorate what took place in the military action, and we have to make sure that we continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Now for 2.5 minutes, MP Desilets, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, you're in the cabinet, of course, and you know better than anybody else that there are 44 million vaccines that are supposed to be coming in the next few weeks and months. Have you thought about possibly offering Quebec and the other provinces the ability to use veterans who have health experience so that they could come and help us? The problem isn't the number of vaccines, it's often the labor.
Very much, Luke. And again, I would, it's so important that we use anybody that's available in order to make sure that the vaccines are distributed, not distributed, but administered into the arms of people right across the country. But I think, Luke, you're fully aware where the responsibility is for administering the vaccine to the Canadians. That is a provincial jurisdiction. But I would be open to listen to anything that anybody would have in order to make sure that we make this thing move faster. It would be important. But I'm not about to give an indication that I want to overrule any province. Thank you, Luke.
Non, puis on veut pas d'agir.
No, and we don't want any interference, obviously. We want cooperation, collaboration, like you do. But this might be a possibility, you know, maybe to make such an offer. I strongly suggest that you do so. There are provinces that they need the manpower. And I would make another suggestion to you. I have somebody in my riding, and the idea is to get rid of that $20,000 ceiling. I have a citizen who has to repay, who's exceeded that ceiling, somebody who came to help the health services and now has to pay an amount that we don't even know how much it's going to be because she's increased to $26,000. So now she's going to have to pay money back. If you use veterans services, please talk to the provinces so that there can be some kind of an agreement and get rid of that clause, which is not good at all.
Brief answer, please.
Thank you, Luke. Point well taken. And of course, we worked with the provinces during the pandemic and very well, and are still working with the provinces very well, and will continue to work with the provinces to make sure that we address this issue and bring this pandemic to an end and get back to whatever normal is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. And now over to MP Blaney for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and hello again, Minister. As you well know, we are currently doing a study on caregivers in our committee. And one of the concerns that we've heard again and again from families and caregivers is that they're still feeling there's a lack of support for them and for the mental health and well-being of the children and of the caregiver themselves. And it's especially concerning when they're dealing with veterans who have PTSD. We're hearing a lot about how they're modifying their behavior, trying to be supportive, but they don't know how to support people well with PTSD. They're doing the best that they can, but they certainly don't receive any training from Veterans Affairs to support them, to help their families. So now we've got caregivers, often partners that are dealing with children that are frustrated and exhausted. They're exhausted, and in some cases, they're not able to work as much, sometimes not at all, because they're supporting this person who is really, really struggling. So I'm just wondering, we know that there's the caregiver recognition benefit, but this is not enough especially for partners who are now unable to earn a living because of the reality that they are living in their own home and dealing with those mental health supports. So I'm just wondering, will VAC step up and start to support family members with actual resources, therapy, and supports to address the issues that the veterans are facing in their family?
Well, Rachel, as I know, Ms. Blaney, I'm sure you're fully aware that we have done that, and you're one that pushed hard for this, and you mentioned the caregiver recognition benefit, which is so vitally important, and it has to help some. But of course, there's always more to do. But the caregiver recognition benefit puts over $12,500 tax-free to the caregiver, so that's helpful. But of course, we're always open to more options that will make it better for veterans and veterans' families. That's what we're about, and that's why we have the committee, and that's why we have so many roundtables to listen. And I fully agree with you. Anything more that we can do within the mandate, I would be very open to see happen.
Thank you very much, Minister. Now over to MP Doherty for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, back on May 3rd of last year, the Prime Minister announced $240 million for his Wellness Together website. Can you tell us if your department had anything to do with how Homewood Health was chosen to administer this program? And does Veterans Affairs have any contract with Homewood or Schlegel Healthcare?
thank you very much. I'll let my deputy respond to that.
Thanks very much, sir, for the question, Mr. Chair. I am not aware of Wellness Together in terms of the greater whole of government approach with regard to Homewood. What I can say to you is that we have used and through the mental health practitioners across the country have referred our veterans to Homewood for their therapy. As we do in other locations across the country, whether it be St. Anne's Hospital, but it is one of the residential mental health facilities, and this is Homewood in Guelph, Ontario, I think you're speaking to, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Minister, I'm going to read you excerpts from 2 emails I received from a female veteran. Mr. Doherty, I just got off the phone with a very unhelpful person at the 1866 number of Veterans Affairs. This is to give you an idea how difficult it is to talk to anyone. Yesterday, I received a letter stating that my diminished earnings capacity amount request has been found inconclusive and that I have to have an assessment by a contractor in order to check to see if I deserve it or not. I just did this last year, December 9th, 2019 to March 20th, 2020, I did it all. 2 days physical testing that crippled me for a week, mental health questionnaires, and wanting me to talk to their psychiatrist or equivalent. Please note, I'm rated 60% disabled due to my PTSD. I am a suicide and self-harm risk. I didn't want to have to go through with this process again when I just did it only months earlier. Today I bit the bullet and I phoned and I tried to talk to somebody in that unit. I'm not allowed to speak to them. I'm not even allowed to talk to the supervisor in order to talk to someone in that unit. Apparently they have no numbers for any unit. I was told repeatedly that I need to talk to my case manager. I repeatedly replied, I have. He can't do anything about it. So I am trying to contact the person who sent me the letter. Nothing. Simply, you need to talk to your case manager. To which I said, I have. He cannot do anything. This is frustrating, rude, and wrong at every level. People making these decisions need to be able to qualify them and have recourse to answer any questions. It states directly in my letter to call the 186 number in order to talk to somebody. I did, and there was no help. Mr. Speaker, or Minister, now I'm going to read the second letter that I received just yesterday. I just got a phone call from the contractor this afternoon. She basically told me that all the stuff just 1 year ago is nothing. Oh, that, she said. The psychiatric part, not acceptable. I started to fail at this point, went into full distress. I started to self-harm, and my husband took me to mental health intake where they did an assessment on me, drugged me up enough to go home, and told me they don't have anyone qualified in any sort of military PTSD and felt that they couldn't help me. This is what happened to me. This is what's happening to vets all around Canada. 1 minute we're safe. A new person walks in the door and then we're denied. It's always a fight. The only way to win is to no longer be under the control. And to that, I mean, commit suicide. I was at this point today. Minister, you've been in this position for over 800 days. Does that sound like how we should treat somebody that served our country?
Number one, if you have an individual case, I think you have 2 of them. It would be good to give my office a call. And
it's the same person. It's the same person.
Same person, okay. And listen, I truly care. And if something happened that we can rectify and make sure it is done, but I can't discuss that here. But we place the highest priority on issues like this, and I'm sure the deputy would love to touch it with you. But the fact is, we want to make sure that they have the appropriate support that they need. But on an individual case, if you would get a hold of my office, I can assure you we'll do anything we can to help. Walt, our deputy, do you want to?
Again, sir, our culture is one of care, compassion, and respect. And where there's an issue of concern,
does that sound like care, compassion, respect?
And that's why, sir, if there's an issue, then we'll need to do a deep dive on it, because again, our culture is one of caring, of issuing or exercising compassion and respect. And I do appreciate this has been the experience of the veteran, and we need to make it better. Absolutely, sir.
Thank you.
I want you to be sure to get back to my office on that.
Thank you very much,
Minister. Thank you.
And for 5 minutes, MP Lalonde.
Merci beaucoup. Bonjour, Monsieur.
Thank you very much. Hello, Minister. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Discuss with you the Veterans Family Wellbeing Fund, because we know that veterans receive a great deal of support from their families and friends, and certainly from Veterans Affairs Canada. But veterans organizations are an important factor in providing support. Having spoken out to a number of these organizations right here on this committee, we've heard and seen firsthand the crucial work that they're doing. The pandemic has only made things, as we know all, a little bit more challenging for our veterans and the organization that provide them support. In 2018, the government began funding many veterans organizations through the Veterans and Family Wellbeing Fund. The groups that are receiving this funding are doing a wide range of work and research on veterans' homelessness, mental health, transitioning to civilian life, and supporting women's veterans, and so much more. Minister, you and your department recently announced the 2021 recipients of the Veterans and Family Wellbeing Fund. I would like you to speak a little bit more about the importance of this fund and the announcement that you recently made.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lalonde. And I can tell you, veterans organizations, big and small, are working on behalf of veterans and their families right across this country, and everybody on the committee knows that. Since 2018, we've been incredibly proud to provide support to 60 organizations throughout Canada, and this was done in order to provide a better life for veterans. Last month, we announced that 23 organizations throughout Canada would be receiving funding through the Wellbeing Fund to either start or expand their veteran support activities. This year, recipients are doing things like supporting the social and emotional well-being of veterans, families, and caregivers, honoring our Indigenous veterans, helping develop resources to assist former homeless veterans to live independently. And we all know what a big issue that the homeless issue is with veterans, and we're working hard on that. And we explore new approaches to the wellness of women veterans, which is, again, a big issue. Everyone knows how important these organizations are to our veterans and their families and their communities, like the Legion, and many other organizations. This funding is going to do a lot, and I'm incredibly proud that we're able to provide them with the funding they need to make a difference. But you also know that these organizations work so hard throughout the country, in their own communities, to provide funding for themselves, and all they do with the funding that they receive is help veterans. And along with it, a lot of these organizations have facilities that are really the meeting place for not only veterans, but communities right across the country. So it's so vitally important. But again, we're emphasizing on the veterans' importance. But really, the organizations that we've helped do a lot for veterans, indeed, and they do a lot for the communities that they're in. So I appreciate the question, and I certainly appreciate this Veterans Family and Wellbeing Fund. It's a wonderful fund and helps out so much, and it does a lot for the veterans, and for that I couldn't be more proud. And I thank you for the question.
Thank you very much. And maybe very briefly, I'm not sure how much time I have. I have 1 minute. I want to talk to you about the Vimy and Juno Beach Center funding. Over the past 7 months, and I want to just go back on, the government provided to the Juno Beach Center and the Vimy Foundation. Can you please elaborate on this funding and speak a little bit about it? Because there was something very important that we not able to celebrate between the 9th and the 12th of this month. Certainly, we hope that we could have, and I had the pleasure of representing you on a few events, but this pandemic has certainly changed things. But I would like to hear about our commitment to the Juno Beach Center and the Vimy Foundation, Minister.
Brief answer, please.
I thank you very much. The chair is going to cut me off, but Juno Beach, of course, we know what all happened. The Canadians landed there, and they've we're able to announce 500,000 extra over 2 years, and with the 500 they get a year. It's so vitally important. It's so important for Canada. Everybody sees that. The Vimy Foundation does an awful lot of great work. We know what happened at Vimy Ridge. Really, they say the day the nation was born there. But with the money that we provided to Vimy is, I think, so important. It provides an online portal for people to virtually view Vimy and its surroundings. And also it provides application that can be used by visitors. So it explains exactly what took place at Vimy. And it's our own Canadian history that took place at Vimy Ridge. And it's so important that Canadians, young and old, understand exactly what took place at Vimy Ridge and how brave our soldiers, how brave they operated, and the lives that were lost. A lot indeed.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you. And I want to, that wraps up this round, and I believe you need to depart at this point. I want to take the opportunity on behalf of the committee to thank you for attending today and answering questions. We will be continuing on with your deputy and officials, but please, I will extend my thanks to you, sir, for being here with us today.
I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, and the committee, and urge you to stay safe. It's a trying time for everybody. Take care of yourselves.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. So we'll soldier on here, and I will backtrack a little bit and introduce the officials. Of course, we've already heard from someone who is of course no stranger to this committee, General Retired Walter Nitinchuk, Deputy Minister. Officially welcome again, sir. We are also joined by Charlotte Bastien, Assistant Deputy Minister, Strategic Oversight and Communications. Rick Christopher, Assistant Deputy Minister, Strategic Policy and Commemoration. Stephen Harris, Assistant Deputy Minister, Service Delivery Branch. And Sarah Lance, Acting Assistant Deputy Minister, Chief Financial Officer, and Corporate Services Branch. And I believe, Ms. Lance, you have an opening statement to start us off in the second hour.
Yes, thank you, and good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. As the chair just introduced me, my name is Sarah Lance. I'm the Acting Assistant Deputy Minister, Chief Financial Officer, and of Corporate Services at Veterans Affairs Canada. It's a pleasure to be here with you today to discuss the 2021-2022 main estimates for Veterans Affairs Canada and to answer any questions you may have. Before I speak directly to the main estimates for the new year, I would like to take a moment to reflect on this past year. As has been highlighted many times before, this has been a difficult period of time for all Canadians. The pandemic has impacted all of us in different ways, and yet I'm very proud of how Veterans Affairs Canada staff have worked together over this past year to manage all of the different and complex challenges which allowed Veterans Affairs Canada to maintain our services and supports to veterans across the country when they needed us most.
Through our work and achievements prior to the pandemic, to become a more digital organization, we were able to quickly and efficiently equip our employees across the country so that they could work remotely. This ensured that there was no disruption in services to our veterans and to their families. In fact, in that first month of April, we provided over $350 million worth of benefits and services. Over 12 months, we have provided $4.3 billion in benefits and services for fiscal year 2020-2021.
In response to the pandemic, Veterans Affairs Canada was able to increase the budgets for Veterans Emergency Fund and the Veterans Family and Wellbeing Wellbeing Fund, as well as secure an additional $20 million in new funding to provide emergency COVID relief to veterans organizations hard hit by the pandemic, such as some of our Royal Canadian Legions. Also in 2020, as we have previously communicated to this committee, we were able to secure an additional $192 million in funding over 2 years in support of improving our turnaround times for decisions on disability benefits. The department moved quickly to retain, recruit, and train over 700 employees, and now are starting to realize the positive impacts of this increased departmental capacity. Cela dit, bien que nos niveaux de service.
Having said this, while our service levels were maintained, as a result of the public health safety measures implemented across the country, we did experience some lower than projected utilization of in-person services. Some of these services were home care, dental services, massage therapy, or other similar services. Collectively, this resulted in expenditures of 10% less than was originally projected before the pandemic.
Fiscal year, assuming some level of return to normal in 2021-22 due to vaccinations and taking into account our increased capacity for disability adjudication, you will note that the 2021-2022 main estimates provide Veterans Affairs Canada an opening budget of $6.3 billion, which represents an increase of $1 billion or 20% compared to last year's main estimate. Nous prévoyons actuellement.
We are currently forecasting that approximately $870 million of this $1 billion increase is primarily attributable to the increased capacity and to the improved turnaround times for disability-related decisions.
These estimates also include key increases for our income replacement benefit, our health purchase services, and veterans independence programs to ensure sufficient funding is available to meet growing demand for these programs. En fait, il est toujours bon de noter.
Lastly, it is always worthwhile to note that over 90% of Veteran Affairs Canada's budget is to provide payments and services to our veterans and their families. This funding goes directly to critical programs for disability benefits, income replacement, rehabilitation, caregiver recognition benefits, education and training benefits, and more.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide these opening comments. And now I and my colleagues with me here today will be pleased to address any questions that you have or other committees may have about these 2021-2022 main estimates. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lance. Before we move on, I want to just maybe a show of hands if anybody else on the call was having some difficulty with translation there, with the volume being the same. Yeah, okay. So we're going to just maybe pause for a second here and let the technicians see if they can fix this. But I was hearing you, Ms. Lance, but I was hearing the interpreter at the same volume, and so I was able to make out what you were saying. Or through the interpreter, but it wasn't ideal. So we're just going to suspend for a minute until they can figure this out. On with round three. If we do want to come back maybe at the next committee business and discuss this format and change it, but traditionally we just keep moving forward. So first up we have MP Doherty for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't know who best to answer this, but I will ask the question. I'll thank our witnesses for being here. Could somebody please tell me how many of the shuttered Veterans Affairs offices are currently open and servicing veterans?
Sir, thanks very much. There were 9 offices that were reopened in the time frame of, I believe, 2015 to 16. And so, yeah, total of 9 offices that were opened and really across the country.
How many were closed?
It was those same 9. And in addition to the 9, we opened a 10th office in Surrey, British Columbia. And in addition to that, created a capacity for our service delivery operations people to visit northern communities across the country. So not fixed in any one location, but actually moving across the country. And if you want a bit more information, I can ask Stephen Harris to address it, sir.
Could you tell me if they've all been fully staffed?
To my absolute knowledge, they have been fully staffed and continue to be staffed across the board. Stephen, you want to make comment in that regard?
Sorry, a delay on the mute button. Yes, exactly. They have been fully staffed since the time that they've been opened. There are, of course, on occasion, departures. People move on, they get promoted, other things, and we've replaced people as they've departed. So yes, they would be staffed.
Have they been open during COVID?
Sir, all of our offices remain accessible across the country. And again, we want to adhere to the local public health protocols in each location. But they are accessible for our employees to have access to. But in terms of in-person, that is on an exceptional basis only, again, following the occupational health and safety guidelines, both of the public service and adhering to the public service guidelines in each jurisdiction. Stephen, you want to talk any more on that?
No, that's correct, Deputy. And so what we've done is we've shifted to a virtual environment where we're using, as the Deputy noted earlier, not only our call center, our online service from my VAC account, text messages, but also things like this, Zoom, MS Teams, to be able to reach out and communicate with our veterans, those who may have questions about us, those who are case managed. We were having a variety of ways to continue to support and connect with them. Many people didn't come into the office before. In fact, we were serving them remotely before, and that's something that's continued during this period as well.
How does that work in rural and remote communities with our veterans that are struggling with connectivity?
And so there's multiple ways in which people can continue to connect with us, be it by phone or by text message, by using the internet, by using MS Teams and things of that nature as well. And so there's a variety of ways for people, including written communication or fax communication as well, to be able to connect with us.
I'm really sorry, guys, to do this. I'm going to have to suspend again. We've apparently lost the phone line, so anybody listening in, staffing and others have all been dropped. So Todd, we're going to pause your time. In fact, we're probably going to give you a little bit of time back because I think they've been dropped for a few seconds here. So we're just going to suspend and try and get the technical stuff dealt with.
Well, first, I just want to make a comment for those that are on that have been listening in and listening to the last session with the minister. There was somebody actually listening from our local Veterans Affairs office regarding the issue with the female veteran. They have contacted my office, and we will be putting them in touch with the veteran. So I just want to say thank you to that person who is listening in. Give kudos where kudos is due. General, I just want to be very clear. Is it your testimony today that the 9 offices that were shuttered, and indeed one more, has been open during COVID?
They're accessible. All of the offices are accessible in the same way that our headquarters buildings are accessible. We're not providing services out of those facilities, but our employees can come and go. We are using multiple channels to provide services to our veterans, but a walk-in service is not being provided in our locations. And really, from a service provision standpoint, we're able to meet the needs through all of these other low-touch capabilities. Stephen, you just want to mention a bit of those, what we've been doing?
Absolutely. So in terms of from a call center point of view, we're taking more than 1,500 calls a day. We're getting more than 600 contacts from a MyVac secure message point of view. We're doing the outreach that the minister and the deputy spoke to earlier, and we're including that in that people actually going and being able to go in home to visit and do occupational therapy assessments in emergency situations and with all the proper protocols in place. And so it's an enormous amount of outreach. There's an enormous amount of contact and touch points between our veteran clients and their case managers and the staff at Veterans Affairs at this stage.
Okay, so they are accessible, not open, but they're accessible through the different communications lines. So a veteran today could not walk into a local Veterans Affairs office. They have to go through, MyVac or the 18186 number or other means.
That's correct, sir.
Okay. How much more time do I have? Chair?
Probably about 30 seconds.
I guess the question I'll have for the general is, in the foreseeable future, is this the level of communication that will continue for our veterans?
Sir, we're going to adjust our position based upon the local health protocols in all of the areas. Again, Veterans Affairs doesn't own any real property. We're the tenant, and everywhere we go, all we own is 2 cemeteries, just so you know. And Vimy Ridge.
Right.
But besides that, what we will do, work with PSBC as a department, and as soon as the local health authority has indicated that it's all green lights, we can move forward, we've reached that level of safety, then we will provide greater access to 10% to 25% into our offices going forward. But what we are hearing, again, through stakeholder meetings, and we're having a lot of them, is that we are generally meeting the needs across the country through all of these multiple channels that Mr. Harris laid out.
Thank you, General. And now over to MP Sampson for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, and glad to have the opportunity to speak. It's been a busy day. I'd like to first of all thank the deputy and staff for their hard work through this pandemic. I know that working remotely when COVID hit us was very, very challenging, but in a very short period of time, you were able to get 90% of the staff working remotely equipped and capable of delivering. And I know that we were delivering at par or better, but I also realized that there was less applications as well during a certain amount of time. And I also appreciate all the briefing I get, because I can be tough out there, but you guys are handling quite well. So I'm happy for that, and thank you. During the first session, the minister shared something that I thought we should come back to, that we've seen the backlog moving from 23,000 down to 15,000, which is really, if I do my calculation correctly, about 35% a drop in the backlog. Now, I realize that there's maybe less applicants throughout this process because of timing and during COVID and all, but those are really good numbers. So I'd really appreciate if you could share with Canadians, some of the key things that you've noticed, the areas in your plan that is really making a difference right now in helping us move the backlog forward.
Sir, thanks very much. And I would like to take the opportunity to thank the committee for the recommendations that have come before and assisted us in getting the horsepower, the staff horsepower, and developing the plan as we did in order to move forward. What I'll do is I'll ask Stephen to address under all four pillars, if you could there, Stephen. Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy, and thank you very much for the question. I think we've seen progress on a number of levels. Clearly, as the Minister spoke earlier, he referenced the additional hiring that we've done over the course of the period of the pandemic with the money that was received through the supplementary estimate. That's meant an additional 350 people who are now trained fully and working independently and making decisions on files that are beyond our service standard and files that continue to come in in terms of applications over the course of the last little while. We've organized ourselves differently. We've organized ourselves into veteran benefit teams. This puts all of the elements required to make decisions on behalf of veterans in one team. And so we've organized those teams both amongst our staff that are our long-term staff and those staff that we've just received through some of these spike and surge hires as well. And they've coalesced into units that are able to make decisions and organize themselves to be able to do that on a quick basis. We're also looking at changes to the way in which we both receive and process applications, making the process as easy as possible on behalf of the veteran, and also getting the information into the hands of decision makers as quickly as possible. That can include how we obtain service records either from the Canadian Armed Forces or from areas like Libraries and Archives Canada or other areas of D&D as well. So we've streamlined the process that we've been able to accelerate that as much as possible, even in a COVID time, to ensure that that information can come in as quickly as possible. We're also looking at automation in terms of the way in which the process and the systems work. So what is the most effective tools that we can use to search that information that comes in to identify the pertinent information to be able to make a decision. Often when a medical file may come in for review, it could be substantial and lengthy, and we need to be able to go through that as quickly as possible to make decisions and find the pertinent information to allow our team to make that decision as quickly as possible. And those are, I think, a couple of examples that have helped us to move in the right direction. There's more work to do.
Merci beaucoup, Stephen, pour cette réponse.
Thank you very much, Stephen, for this response. I really appreciate the information. I think it's very important for Canadians. And about commemoration, it's a very important issue. And as has already been mentioned, our committee is preparing a study on the subject, which is very important. And I know that the government wants to invest in recognition and commemoration of our veterans. And of course, last Friday was Vimy Ridge Day, and I was present for an activity. So I would like to ask a quick question. What activities are planned for this summer in terms of important commemorations? What are you going to be planning?
Very brief answer, please. General, you're on mute still.
As he tries to find his mute button, I'll just say, sir, we certainly are working with the veteran stakeholders in the Commemoration Advisory Group and recognizing a number of events. This is, again, a year where Capion, the Battle of Capion is coming up just on the 22nd, 23rd of April. And then looking at Peacekeeper Day on the 9th of August this summer. In between, obviously, Beaumont Hamel on the 1st of July coming up. And I think I should probably sum it up there. And Rick Christopher can perhaps address them on a subsequent question. Thank you.
Thank you. And now over to Deputy Desilets for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. General, what I heard you say recently was just before. Can you just confirm to me that, in fact, veterans are able to receive answers within 2 minutes when they call? Did I understand that correctly?
Found that our call centers actually, the efficiency has improved during the pandemic. Having our employees working from home, they're actually been reaching a higher level of productivity than we have seen prior to the pandemic. We're learning in this regard. And I'll ask Mr. Harris just to address this point. Stephen?
Vous avez raison que souvent.
You're right. Often people get an answer within 2 minutes. The service standard is 2 minutes, but often it's within 2 minutes, under 2 minutes, and over 80% of calls are answered within 2 minutes. Well, if that's the case, I have no reason to doubt you. I'm very impressed because the slowness of the phone system and the poor quality of it is something we've heard about and we've discussed so much about on this committee. We talked about wait times. Sometimes people had to wait for half a day and they wouldn't get the right answer. Coordination was difficult. Is there something that we could obtain in terms of something written about this to confirm? Is this data being collated anywhere?
Oui, ça fait partie des.
Yes. It's part of the reports that we distribute every year, but we can give the committee the information. Yes, I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much. And I have a last quick question here for the General. As I've said to the Minister before, in Quebec, we have an example of a retired Army nurse who answered the call to go to the front and work as a nurse during the pandemic. From March to June, anyone having done this was in the full wave, and they exceeded the $6,000 ceiling, which is $20,000. They're $6,000 over, and it's $20,000, and now the government is wanting that money back. How many veterans are in this situation where they gave service to their country and have to pay back the money? Are you going to change this $20,000 rule so that veterans can help us out with the pandemic?
That's actually time, General, but I'll give you an opportunity for a brief answer, please.
Yes, sir. I really appreciate the information. Again, this is for those veterans who are on the income replacement benefit, and they're allowed to make $20,000 as an incentive to find purpose. And I'm thrilled hearing that people are using it to the best advantage. This is the first I've heard of a case of this nature. And again, generally under the regulation and legislation, we're allowed to give them that first $20,000 without any clawback. But I appreciate this information here, sir.
Thank you, General. MP Blaney for 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm going to come back to the marriage after 60 clause. I just think we all know that it was put into law in 1901. And it was nicknamed the Gold Digger Clause because the idea, of course, at the time was that young women were marrying men and when they were older and getting their pensions. And so I'm just very frustrated that the sexism that was in place in those days, and hopefully we would think we were doing a little bit better, certainly continues today. So the minister has said that the research is happening to help identify these spouses. I just want to be really clear that we've had a lot of these spouses reach out to our office and ask, once especially they heard about the 2019 budget announcement, they wanted to sign up. So now we are over 2 years and the study is just starting. My office has been asking again and again for information and really had nothing to tell people. Could there not be a process where people could apply? Because I'm sure that many of these largely women can self-identify quite clearly. And this is something that, in my opinion, they desperately need and deserve. So that's one question. How is this process going to unfold? How are people going to be able to access the supports that they desperately need? And the second question is, when is this clause going to be removed? This is an old clause that has nothing to do with what's happening today. It's been over 100 years. It needs to be gone. So I'm just wondering, when will it actually be removed? And when will we start treating people who marry our military, our veterans, respectfully? These are people that are loving them. This is a beautiful thing, and we should not be punishing people for falling in love at 60.
Madam and Mr. President, thanks very much for the question. The marriage after 60 is a real challenging policy. Again, it is directly linked to the superannuation of the Canadian Armed Forces. What the department has been given through the budget process is the creation of the Veteran Survivor Benefit, which is, again, as you've indicated before, I believe $150 million. The challenge that we had when it came out of the budget is to actually understand fully the depth, the gap, and the needs across the board. And that's why we went to the Canadian Institute of Military and Veteran Health Research and to Statistics Canada to have them assist us in developing the evidence base upon which to build the policy. And in the case of CIMVAR, that is the Canadian Institute of Military Veteran Health Research, they went to University of British Columbia to actually do the research. That research was impacted significantly by COVID, and thus we only received the information more recently. And I'll now ask Rick Christopher to weigh in and indicate how we're moving forward in terms of a policy.
Yeah, and
very, very briefly, please.
Okay, sure, I'll be brief, and thank you, Deputy. So, Mr. Chair, what we're doing is we finally got the information. As the Deputy said, there was a delay due to the pandemic, and we're compiling that information, and we will be developing recommendations for the Minister on how to proceed with the policy.
Excellent, thank you very much. And we do need to wrap up. We have, of course, some votes in front of us, but on behalf of the committee, I'd like to thank the witnesses for their appearance and more importantly for their service to our country in these incredibly challenging and difficult times. We appreciate the work that you're doing. We see the momentum, and I think there's a lot more work to do. We can all agree, but a heartfelt thank you from us. I will invite you to log off now, as we do have some votes before us.
Thank you.
So, folks, pursuant to Standing Order 81-4, the committee will now consider the main estimates of the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2022. There are two options here. We can either put the question of the credits together in one motion or dispose of the credits individually. My preference is to do it all at once. Is there unanimous consent to dispose of the credits together?
Great.
Excellent. So where are we at here? Oh dear. Okay, bear with me for a second here. We have a technical issue. I think vote, maybe if the clerk can step in and help me out here. Here we are. Shall votes vote 1 and 5 under Department of Veterans Affairs of the main estimates 2021-22 and vote 1 under Veterans Review and Appeal Board carry?
On division.
On division.
On division. Shall I report these votes to the House? Excellent. Thank you. And just double checking with the clerk that I haven't missed a critical step here. All right. Thank you. Seeing no other business before us, do we have consent to adjourn today's meeting?
Great.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Good to see everybody.